Welcome to qualifying ahead of the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, the Parkland circuit, which is about an hour north of Milan. A slightly sombre qualifying lies ahead of us, with the whole sport still reflecting upon the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and teams up and down the paddock paying their respects with black armbands and special tributes adorning each of their cars, as well as the 1 minute silence which took place ahead of this weekend's activities, and another planned for ahead of the race tomorrow. And also, 9 drivers have grid penalties, including front-runners Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. So you may well have to bear with us while we work out how that all affects the grid tomorrow. A reminder that Max Verstappen leads the championship by 109 points from his teammate Sergio Perez and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, with 7 rounds still to go. Jack Nicholls is alongside me in the commentary box. And Jack, this is a really good opportunity for someone slightly out of the ordinary to get on the front row.
Certainly is. Charles Leclerc sort of looks like a shoe-in for pole position, considering the pace of the Ferrari and all of his rivals having grid penalties. But if it went like free practice earlier on this morning, it would be Fernando Alonso on the front row, Norris and Russell on row 2. So whatever happens, and whatever we think of engine penalties and grid penalties, which broadly looks a bit silly, but we could end up with a pretty interesting grid.
So just to recap, starting at the back of the grid will be Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda. 15-place grid penalties for Valtteri Bottas, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher, and 10 places for Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon, with 5-place grid penalties. Whoever is fastest today will be in pole position. They just won't start from pole position potentially tomorrow. So let's wait and see what happens. And Sam Bird, a Formula E driver, is alongside us as well. And Sam, a shuffle, a change to the driver lineup today.
Absolutely. Actually, a fellow Formula E driver will be replacing Alexander Albon in the Williams seat. Unfortunately, Alexander Albon has come down with appendicitis, and we wish him well and a speedy recovery. But yeah, very exciting to see Nick de Vries in a Formula One car. Obviously not the first time he's driven one, but this is his first race, so good luck to him.
Well, the flags are waving and the grandstand's absolutely packed. The Tifosi, Jack, are expectant. Mattia Binotto, the team principal, a man who really needs to start delivering for his fans, but also for the bosses at Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because they have had a good year, broadly speaking. Their best year in a long time. They've built the best car that they've built in a long time. So it's an odd one on that front, but how they'd love a win at Monza. I think it's kind of doable with the penalties for the Red Bulls. It's kind of doable, but it depends where they qualify and what unfolds in the Grand Prix tomorrow.
Certainly does. Well, just a couple of minutes to go until qualifying does get underway, and Max Verstappen was so impressive at Spa. He and his Red Bull combined, even with grid penalties, to be able to come back. We were talking ahead of this session exactly where Max Verstappen could start here and then still go on to win this race. He has a 5-place grid penalty. Sam, what do you reckon? Could he start anywhere and still potentially win here at Monza tomorrow?
The gap was so vast at Spa. He hasn't got that much of an advantage here. Clearly, he is still the quickest, and he would be my favourite for the race if he were to start inside the top 10.
I mean, he's going to be starting 6th or 7th, really, isn't he?
Yeah, I would imagine. I can only really on pace see him or Charles Leclerc being the quickest today in qualifying. But I don't think he's got the advantage that he had at Spa. No, nowhere near. I'm glad that he doesn't, because it was so significant at Spa. Although brilliant to watch, we want a spectacle. We want a fight at the front.
Well, we certainly do want a fight at the front. At the moment, Max Verstappen, as we said, leading the way with a 109-point advantage over anybody else. 7 races still to go. What will happen this weekend? It is time for qualifying ahead of the Italian Grand Prix with myself, Jenny Gow, Sam Bird, Formula E driver, and of course our lead commentator, Jack Nicholls.
And the session's going to start in 15, 14, 13, 12, 11 seconds, and we'll see who heads straight out onto the circuit. I'm imagining the Aston Martins, the Haas and the Williams, broadly speaking, would be my initial guesses. Light goes green now at the end of the pit lane. And Lance Stroll is straight out in his Aston Martin. His teammate Sebastian Vettel still sitting in the pit lane currently, as Stroll joins the circuit. And slowest in free practice 3 earlier on today, Lance Stroll, 20th quickest on a 1 minute 23.7. The quickest time we've seen this weekend was Verstappen earlier on today on a 1 minute 21.252. Now, Charles Leclerc hasn't had a pole position since the French Grand Prix. Can he book one in today, or can Verstappen be quickest in qualifying for the 3rd race in a row? Lance Stroll made it into Q3 in the Netherlands a week ago, was 14th in the 2 races prior to that in Belgium and Hungary, but I think he's going to have his work cut out today. We've mentioned a few times over the weekend, but this Monza circuit is quite specific, so there are some cars that arrive here knowing they're not going to be having a good weekend, and the Aston Martins are one of those cars, and the Haas one of those cars as well. Yuki Tsunoda's left the pit lane. Mick Schumacher in the aforementioned Haas has left the pit lane as well, and he did a solid job in free practice 3 earlier, I thought, Schumacher.
Yeah, and he had 9 laps on the first day of practice, so was severely running short of lappery, so he'll hope to get more. And just worth pointing out that actually Max Verstappen could potentially start higher than 6th in the end. Depending on where everybody else finishes, we've got people like Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, Ocon, who could all shuffle back because they've all got grid penalties as well. And potentially, actually, Ocon wouldn't shuffle behind him because they both have 5-place grid penalties. But you know what I mean. There are enough people out there with grid penalties that Verstappen, even though he would be +5...
So what's the highest that he could finish then?
I think he could start...
Could he still... Is there a situation where he could still be on pole position?
No.
Because of Leclerc.
Yeah, but what if Leclerc didn't?
If Leclerc, well, yeah, I guess there is a... Yeah.
It's a very bizarre set of circumstances. Lance Stroll now through Sector 1, obviously gone purple because he's the first car on track. Very squirrely on the exit of the second chicane. He's now gone through the second Lesmo, left a little bit on the table there. DRS now wide open, Jack, as he goes towards Ascari.
Down towards the chicane. Swings it into the left, swings it right, swings it left once more. This car looking very bouncy as he comes through that chicane, Lance Stroll. This is going to be our first lap time on the board. Tsunoda comes across the line now to start a lap, followed by Schumacher. No slipstream or anything for Lance Stroll as he turns into the final corner. Got a front row start here in the wet, did Stroll, in 2017. Comes across the line and does a 1 minute 24.231. So Stroll does a 24.2, and that is, I think, the half a second slower than he managed in free practice 3 earlier on today on the soft tyres. And now leaving the pits is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull and making his way towards the end of the pit lane. Perez already on circuit, but they're the first 2 front runners out on circuit.
Maybe worth pointing out for Williams fans that Latifi and De Vries are on different setups. So De Vries running the high downforce setup. That side of the garage seems to think that that's the way to go, and Latifi's side running the low downforce setup. So there are some differences between the cars and the setups that they're choosing to run this weekend, and different opinions as well between drivers of what they want out of their car. 14
minutes and 10 seconds to go. Both Williams have just left the pits, Latifi and De Vries. Tsunoda here is going quicker than Lance Stroll as he gets under the brakes, turns into the final corner at the Parabolica and comes out across the line. And Tsunoda goes quicker than Lance Stroll by a comfortable margin in the end, 1.4 seconds, a 1 minute 22.7 for Yuki Tsunoda. Mick Schumacher's 1.3 seconds slower than that. Magnus is only 4/10 away from Tsunoda. Still, the Ferraris remain in the pit lane. Verstappen and Perez are just finishing their outlaps now. Latifi and De Vries are halfway around the lap. Emerging from the pits comes the Ferraris now. Carlos Sainz first of all, and you can hear the cheers for the Ferraris as they join the circuit down at the Rettifilo chicane. Always a bit of a cool grandstand, that one, because you sort of overlook the old banking and then look into the Rettifilo, the one just on the inside on the run down towards the first corner, and all the fans plastered up against the fence on the outside, which gives you such a great view there, just underneath the photographer's platform. 12 minutes and 55 seconds on the clock. Well, Stroll has returned to the pits. Verstappen and Perez, as I say, are on their laps now. Perez is not actually quicker than Tsunoda in Sector 1. Mick Schumacher sent it in with a lot of speed into the Rettifilo, and the back end came around like a pendulum, and that would have cost him a bit of time. And Sebastian Vettel has dipped a couple of wheels, well, sort of half, in the gravel on the exit of Della Roggia.
Yeah, Sebastian would have had to have got out of the throttle a little bit there, not because he couldn't keep it flat out, just because he'll wanted to have tried and continued maximum traction. Max Verstappen now in the middle of Sector 2 through Lesmo 2. God, the car looks on rails, Jack. Looks absolutely unbelievable as he now flies towards the Ascari chicane.
Fastest first sector of anyone, Nick de Vries in the Williams. Verstappen does the fastest middle sector, and he's almost 3/10 up on Sergio Perez's lap time. Perez has done a 22.0 now to go to the top of the times. Heading down towards the final corner of the Parabolica. A bit of traffic up ahead as the Mercedes keep out of the way. It does look as though Hamilton and Russell are going to be slipstreaming, because they're very close together on circuit, with 11 minutes and 42 seconds left on the clock. Here comes Verstappen across the line, and he goes fastest, loses time in the end, only 600s quicker than Sergio Perez, so lost 2 or 3 tenths in the final sector there, did Max Verstappen. Sainz and Norris are on laps now. Here comes de Vries. He goes 4th quickest on a 22.881, and Nicholas Latifi goes quicker on a 22.818, so 700ths between Latifi, who is ahead of de Vries. Sainz now coming through Sector 1, and Leclerc is actually the quickest driver through Sector 1, 1,000 quicker than his teammate Carlos Sainz. So the two Ferraris absolutely locked on pace in the first sector.
Seem to be slipstreaming as well. I think they've got the tow going on between the two Ferraris, with Sainz leading Leclerc round.
Heading down towards Ascari. Carlos Sainz is almost 3/10 up on Max Verstappen. Leclerc is 4/10 up on Max Verstappen after the middle sector. So some big laps incoming here from the Ferrari duo. Lando Norris is going quicker than Verstappen as well. Coming into the final corner, Leclerc down through the gears and back on the power, following his teammate Carlos Sainz across the line. Norris goes into 3rd place. Sainz goes quickest, 7 tenths ahead of Verstappen. Leclerc comes through and does a 21.2, and that is a 10th quicker than Carlos Sainz. So some sort of unexpectedly big laps there from the Ferrari duo, I would suggest.
Max Verstappen's not having it his own way. That's I'm really happy. I'm really happy, not because I'm not a Max fan, just we have a fight on our hands this afternoon.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. 10 minutes to go in the session. Alonso, Ocon, Zhou, Gasly and Bottas are the drivers that would be eliminated at the moment, but they are yet to set a lap time. So the current order is Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, Verstappen, Perez the top 5, Norris, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Latifi, de Vries the top 10, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Schumacher, Vettel and Stroll the top 15, and then the aforementioned drivers yet to set a lap time.
I'm fascinated to see what George Russell will do. He has the order of preference this weekend to see who goes first or second in qualifying. And clearly the tow is there, it's available, it's an option for them. Hamilton taking a back of the grid penalty means he can help Russell out on this. Perez could help Verstappen. Sainz back of the grid again could help Leclerc. We've seen it up and down this grid, so really fascinating to see what happens. But George Russell could potentially start on the front row tomorrow, and I think he sees that as a huge opportunity to try and get Mercedes' first win away.
9 minutes on the clock. Lance Stroll coming through Della Roggia, 4/10 of a second down in Sector 1. Nick de Vries is only a 10th away from Leclerc in the first sector, but yeah, that is an improvement on his personal best lap time, and he is fractionally slower than Nicholas Latifi through Sector 1. De Vries now coming through the two Lesmo corners. Those bottom 5 still just on their outlap now, as Stroll is a second away from Leclerc after the middle sector now. De Vries about to come through that same marker, and he's 7 tenths adrift. And compared to Latifi, he's quicker than Latifi in the middle sector. Nick de Vries. Through the final corner comes Lance Stroll. The Aston Martin about to come out and across the line. The top three are back in the pits. Verstappen's done a cool-down lap, and is he going again here, Verstappen? He might be doing a double cool-down and then pushing again. Across the line comes Stroll. He goes into 12th position. Nick De Vries and Nicholas Latifi about to come through, and it's 8th for De Vries, and it is 9th for Latifi. So Nick De Vries quicker than Latifi by 0.02 of a second. 2 nicks, I've only just realised that. 2 nicks at Williams.
Spelled differently, pronounced the same.
Yeah.
Just noticing it, when you look at the driver tracker, it does look like something from Noah's Ark, because they're all going out 2 by 2. They're all using this system, apart from Aston Martin, the team that you think need it the most, who aren't going out and using their yet anyway, putting them out on track at the same time. But yeah, it's fascinating watching the Norris taking round Ricciardo at the moment. They reckon it's worth 1/4 of a second, the tow here.
Well, Perez is on another lap. I think the one thing with Verstappen's lap time is he's only a 10th quicker than Perez, and he's been 6/10 quicker than Perez throughout the whole weekend. So if you sort of extrapolate that, then Verstappen is in the mix with the Ferraris, but crucially not miles ahead of them.
No, absolutely. He's much faster than what his time is representing right now, Jack. So expect Max Verstappen to be right in the mix come the end of the session. Although Q1, as long as you make it through, does it matter? Why would you burn through another set of tyres? So I assume that he will pit now in the comfort that he is going to make it through. He's not going to be worrying about the elimination zone, so just focus on extracting the maximum potential out of the race car in Q2 and Q3.
Yeah, he's doing another lap now, but on the same set of soft tyres, so he's not going to be using any more up, and this should be enough to see him improve. In fact, it might be enough to see him go to the top of the times, because he's just done the fastest middle sector of anyone of the session so far. So some rapid pacing coming on the second run for Max Verstappen, with 6 minutes and 10 seconds on the board still. He's coming out of Ascari, little puff from underneath the plank of the car as it runs over the curbs on the exit of the quick chicane, and now onto the brakes into the Parabolica. Perez improved to go 3rd fastest on a 21.4, so this actually could put Verstappen ahead of the Ferraris. Looks like it will, and it does. A 1 minute 20.9, more than 3/10 up on the 2 Ferraris, but the Ferraris only did 1 run on those soft tyres and then returned to the pit lane. So Verstappen quickest at the moment. All the other lap times have come in, so the order is Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Russell, the top 5. Tsunoda ahead of Alonso, although he's done more runs than Alonso. Norris in 8th, Ocon 9th, Hamilton 10th. Joe, De Vries, Latifi, Gasly and Ricciardo, the 15 drivers that would be advancing through at the moment. Eliminated would be Magnussen, Bottas, Stroll, Schumacher and Vettel. Jenny.
Is Hamilton in a little bit of trouble? He's obviously not feeling particularly comfortable out there. It doesn't really matter where he qualifies, because in essence he'll start from the back of the grid anyway. I mean, there's a shuffle between the 3 of them, Sainz, Hamilton and Tsunoda, to see who actually starts at the back. Remember, if you've got grid penalties equal to somebody else, then those are denoted by qualifying and where you finish in qualifying. So it kind of counts, but will Hamilton care?
Yeah, he'll want to start as high up the grid as possible.
Well, it'll be 18th, 19th or 20th.
Yeah, 18th is better than 20th, isn't it? Valtteri Bottas, very unusually, Sam, has just had a lock-up into turn 1.
So everybody, we've been speaking about this all weekend. Valtteri Bottas this weekend really seems to have struggled with the end of braking, where as you come off the brakes, you tend to release brake pressure, and so your brake shape is like a triangle going into a corner. Now, when you do that as well, the brake bias tends to migrate towards the rear. So I don't know whether they've just missed something in the software, whether there's a hardware issue with his brake, or whether he's just trying to brake too late. But all the time at the moment, Valtteri is hindering his progress by creating this front locking, then creating understeer and missing corners.
Just as an aside, to let you know, Carlos Sainz has picked up a reprimand for driving unnecessarily slowly in the earlier session today in practice. It's his 4th reprimand of the season. Now, if you get 5 reprimands in a season, then you have to take a 10-place grid penalty. Just worth bearing in mind.
Yeah. 3 minutes and 23 seconds to go. And Magnussen is pushing now through the first sector. He's a couple of tenths up on Daniel Ricciardo's time, which is the the eliminated one at the moment, or the lap time on the bubble at the moment, I should say, in 15th spot. Magnussen, Bottas, Stroll, Schumacher and Vettel, the drivers that would be eliminated. Schumacher is improving, didn't do a great sector 1, but after the middle sector, he is 600ths up on Ricciardo, so even if he finishes his lap, I don't think it's going to be huge for Schumacher, because Magnussen, meanwhile, is almost half a second up on Ricciardo after sector 2. The top 10 are all remaining in the pits, so they're all fairly comfortable at the moment. Or no, as I say that now, they are all starting to leave to get some bankers in. So the Haas are going early. Schumacher out across the line in the Haas, and he remains in 19th place, loses a couple of tenths to Ricciardo in the final sector. Magnussen, though, jumps up into 11th position, so that's a pretty strong lap from the Haas driver. Might have an outside shot at getting through. Whether they're going to do another lap here or not, I don't know. They've got time for a
I think they
for
will,
a cool down and go again.
Cool down, recharge and go again. They've got to give it a go. My thoughts, you were saying that the top 10 were comfortable. They absolutely weren't. I would have said anybody from 4th to Verstappen. So Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, they're comfortable. Everybody else will have to run again in this session.
Magnus has just had his lap time deleted for track limits at the second Lesmo, so he's back down to 16th place.
Same as last week. He had his track time deleted in the Dutch Grand Prix qualifying as well for track limits, so that'd be frustrating for them. I wonder if they were going to swap positions as well and let Schumacher get towed around by Magnussen, because before it was Magnussen quite clearly getting the tow from Schumacher. So I'll keep an eye on where they are on track. Quite
brave of Yuki Tsunoda. He's the only one, except Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, to opt out of going out again. So he obviously thinks that he's done enough, but let's see what happens in just over a minute's time. It's going to be very tight, I think.
Yeah, he's got 7/10 of a second to the drop zone.
Russell's on used soft tyres, so I wonder if he's going out and circulating just in case. Everyone around him is on. Alonso's on a used set as well. Ocon on a used set. Hamilton on a used set as well.
Yeah. So they are just hoping that they're going out basically just as a sort of a insurance policy, really. So at the moment, Magnussen, Bottas, Stroll, Schumacher and Vettel are the drivers that would be eliminated. Sebastian Vettel, compared to Daniel Ricciardo after the middle sector, is 7/10 away, so Vettel's not going through. Oh no, that's actually compared to Verstappen. I apologise.
Yeah, I think he's up on Ricciardo.
Yeah, and Bottas is up on Ricciardo as well. Joe is down on Verstappen. 23 seconds to go, and Magnussen's just started another lap. Hasn't been particularly neat through the Rettifilo. De Vries, Latifi has, I think, made a mistake here. Latifi is done. He's not going to do another lap. He's going to be in 13th place, Latifi, but he might get shuffled down. Vettel jumps up into 14th. Bottas now goes up into 11th place. Here comes Joe across the line. He goes up to 6th. Good lap from Joe. That means Vettel is now knocked out. Latifi is now on the bubble and about to get eliminated. Surely, oh no, maybe not, because Stroll's got up into 17th place. De Vries goes up into 12th position. Hamilton isn't far away from the drop zone here, but he should be able to make it through. It's all really about Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo or Nicholas Latifi will be eliminated from qualifying with Vettel, Stroll, Magnussen and Schumacher. Here comes Ricciardo into the final corner, turns into the right-hander of the Parabolica, and out across the line his teammate Lando Norris is in 11th place. Ricciardo makes it out. Nicholas Latifi is eliminated. 16th will be Latifi, 17th Vettel, 18th Magnussen, 19th Stroll, 20th Schumacher. De Vries is through to Q2. Both McLarens go through, and it is Verstappen who ends up quickest. So, good stuff from Nick De Vries there, Sam.
Yeah, very, very impressive, actually. The fact that it's his first qualifying session, pressure would have been on. And as we said earlier today, Jack, I do get the impression, as Mick Schumacher has a massive lock-up into turn 1, I do get the impression that is the fight for the second Williams seat next year. Is that game, set and match to Nick De Vries, do we think? Or is it going to take a bit more time to suss out?
It's tough, isn't it, to come into your first ever Grand Prix, your first qualifying session, having driven the car, in FP1 in Spain and FP3 here today, and beat Latifi. Latifi had a lock-up at the first corner. That's where it all went wrong for him, catching the right front into the Rettifilo.
Well, lap was gone. Car didn't stop. I don't know why.
Didn't know why the car didn't stop, but it's a yeah. Oh no, that's all right. Sorry, that's fine. Everybody relax. De Vries suddenly had his lap time deleted, but hang on, it was 122.1. So hang on, this could be De Vries' lap time getting deleted here for the Parabolica. But that could have been his second run.
We saw on board. I think we saw on board with him, didn't we? Out of the Parabolica, I think he was okay.
Well,
I mean, it says on the system that his track time of a 122.176 has been deleted.
It has been.
I'm afraid we are out, Sebastian.
But it's moved him down to 15th, so he's
exactly.
okay.
He's got away with it. So
yeah.
De Vries' lap time gets deleted, and he manages to get ahead of Latifi still into Q2, beats Latifi by 0.02 of a second. So De Vries still advances through. If you're Alpine, Sam, are you suddenly thinking of a little bit of Nick De Vries?
Well, how many drivers did they say are on their shortlist at the moment? Is it something? How many drivers have contacted them? Did you say 14? 14 drivers have been in touch.
That's a lot of drivers to have been in touch.
That's a lot of drivers to sift through, but for sure.
Have you been in touch?
No. I'm very happy at Jaguar T6 Racing.
Man. Come on.
I would certainly say that Nick De Vries, Kevin Magnussen. No, I didn't even hear it. Sorry, guys. I would certainly say that Nick De Vries will now be on the radar.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, doesn't it?
I think he was already on the radar. Let's be fair about this. Okay, that is an impressive display for his first ever Formula One qualifying. But let's be fair, he was on the radar of Williams, certainly. He's done very well so far this season in doing his free practice ones. Mercedes said they were impressed. Williams said they were impressed. I don't think Aston Martin had a chance to say they were particularly impressed with him, because this isn't really the circuit that you want to be in an Aston Martin for. As we see both cars go out in the first part of qualifying today. But he is clearly a very talented individual who could rock in Formula One as well as a lot of people on the grid right now.
He's his own manager, did I read? I read that he manages himself somewhere today.
Well, he's doing a very good job.
Yeah.
He could help out a couple of people on the grid.
I thought Toto looked after him.
I mean, Toto will oversee, because he's a Mercedes young driver in the academy, and Toto oversees everybody within that. But I'll do some digging. I'll find out for you.
Yeah, I'm sure I read that somewhere this morning.
I'll just call his manager.
Yeah. No, I'm sure I read that today that he manages himself. Anyway, Q2 coming up.
Can I ask a question on that, Sam, while we're waiting for Q2 to begin? If you represent and manage yourself as a driver, okay, getting on the radar of people, I mean, presumably everyone knows everybody within this industry once you get to a certain stage, but how do you get the best deal for yourself? How do you know what to do in that scenario? Because Sebastian Vettel famously used to negotiate his own deals and get advice from Bernie Ecclestone, but I don't know how a driver puts a value on themselves and goes into a negotiation without someone saying
it was this. Ed Straw wrote on the race earlier on that the Dutchman manages himself and has had discussions with Williams at recent races. So according to Ed Straw, he manages himself.
Okay. I think it takes a certain mindset, Jenny, in order to do that. I think it's very difficult sometimes for an individual to go into these meetings, propose what they believe they're worth, and then the team obviously try and push that down, and you have discussions, and it can, if you're representing yourself, it's almost like it can become personal. That's what a manager is there to do the nitty-gritty, the dirty work, the stuff that can get a little bit nasty at times, the discussions, and they get the best price for you. But I mean, fair enough, if Nick can go into those discussions and meetings and do it himself. Clearly he does the talking on the track, and yeah, Sebastian's done it as well. I think most drivers go down the route of having an actual manager, but it shows that some people can do it themselves.
I guess it also kind of depends on your career trajectory. I think that's the sort of impressive thing with De Vries is he's trying to get seats by him. So, you know, if you're Vettel and you're at Red Bull and then Ferrari come knocking, you don't need to be selling yourself to Ferrari because they know what they're getting. You know, for me, it would be like the selling. De Vries going to all the teams saying, "Hi guys, I'm great." That's the sort of awkward bit. Whereas if teams are coming to you, then that's probably easier to sort of manage. If you're getting poached, that's probably easier to manage yourself. I don't know, but De Vries isn't, so it's very impressive. 14 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock, and Q2 will begin imminently.
It's begun.
Well, correct. Cars will go out on track imminently. And this is about getting inside the top 10 and through to the next part of qualifying.
Do you want a reminder of who's got what penalties?
Oh, yeah, why not,
yeah,
eh?
Why not? So Magnussen, he's already gone out, as has Schumacher. They both have 15-place grid penalties, so they'll start around the back anyway. In fact, they'll move forward for Schumacher, because actually starting at the back will be Sainz, Hamilton and Tsunoda. And then another 15-place grid penalty for Bottas, who has got through into the second part of qualifying. And then it's Perez with a 10-place grid penalty, Verstappen and Ocon with 5-place grid penalties.
Still everybody in the pit lane currently. Verstappen was quickest in that first part of qualifying, but he did an extra run on those soft tyres compared to the Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz. Ended up about 0.3 of a second, just over 0.3 of a second quicker.
It really seemed like it was Sector 3 where he can extract a little bit more time than the Ferraris. I don't know whether by Sector 3 the Ferrari is slightly overheated its rear tyres a little bit through Parabolica, which means they can't carry the minimum and get the exit that Max Verstappen is getting, but he certainly looks very, very quick through the Parabolica.
Just looking at the clock ticking down, we now have just over 13 minutes left. It looks like people are about to head out, but OK, there aren't as many cars, but traffic-wise, are we going to see a little bit of a mess towards the end of this with people trying to get through, not being able to get enough space on track?
It didn't seem like that kind of year so far, Jenny. When we saw that, I think it was 2019?
19, yeah.
2019, it was terrible from Q1. It was very, very bad all the way through qualifying. Sorry, as we see one of my childhood heroes, Gabriele Battistuta, in the garage. Can you remember Gabriele Battistuta?
No. Was he motorbikes?
No, oh my God.
Footballer.
Oh, footballer.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Jack. That is terrible.
Copa America.
Terrible. No, Serie A for Fiorentina, I think it was.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
He's your hero, not mine.
And for Roma when they won Serie A.
Oh.
Yeah, with Francesco Totti. So yeah. Anyway,
are you going to tell your Totti story, or you got a Totti shirt signed, haven't you?
played a marked Francesco Totti.
Marked him out the game, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and then he turned Oliver Rowland into some kind of pretzel and had him on his back. So that was quite good fun. I've forgotten what I was on about now. What was I on
Qualifying?
About? Qualifying.
I think you were done.
I'm going to say that.
Just for the record, Copa America, Battistuta played for Argentina.
Well, yeah, that's his country, Jenny. But
what about the Copa America?
Yeah, he played for Argentina, but in terms of a club, he played for...
Top scorer, 6 goals as they romped to victory. That was knowledge, I didn't read it at all.
11 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Ferraris are out on track. Everybody's out on track actually now, bar Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. Max Verstappen was quickest in that first part of qualifying. Perez is going to be the first driver out across the line to start a flying lap. Here he comes across the line now, down towards the first corner, down towards the Rettifilo. And I think Norris is the last driver out on circuit at the moment, although Tsunoda is yet to leave the pit lane. As Perez now comes through Curva Grande, Max Verstappen is starting his flying lap now in the Red Bull.
I'm guessing Tsunoda won't potentially leave now. He's got grid penalties start at the back, so it might be that he's done.
Everybody is so slow, man.
Joe complaining that everybody is so slow as they try and get space in the traffic. Max Verstappen onto the brakes into the Rettifilo, the first chicane. Car turns beautifully on the exit of, on the apex of the second left-hander. Perez does a 27.2 in sector 1, which is 0.3 slower than Leclerc managed. Verstappen comes through the first sector, and it's a 27.1, slower than Bottas and slower than De Vries in the first sector for the Red Bull, as he now comes into the right-hander of the first Lesmo, now into the second Lesmo. It is used tyres for Verstappen, Leclerc and Sainz here, so they're not going to be massively rapid. A 1 minute 21.3 for Sergio Perez as Verstappen comes through the Ascari chicane and out onto the back straight up towards the Parabolica. Sainz has done the fastest first sector of anyone, a 26.7. That's a rapid first sector from Carlos Sainz. Verstappen pulling 5G as he comes through the right-hander of Parabolica and out across the line. He goes quicker than Perez, but by just over 1/10 of a second. Nick De Vries goes up into third. Valtteri Bottas now goes up into third. Here comes Hamilton into the final turn. Gasly now goes up into third. Zhou goes up into 6th spot. Ocon goes 4th. Hamilton now goes 3rd. 4/10 back from the Red Bulls, but on a new set of tyres. And Sainz goes to the top of the times. 4/10 ahead of Hamilton. He is on a used set of tyres, but less used than Verstappen's. So that was kind of his second lap on those tyres as opposed to it being Verstappen's third. So there is that caveat there with Sainz's quickest time of the session. And Leclerc, I think Leclerc's backed off here. So something's happened to Charles Leclerc, got onto the brakes into the Rettifilo and didn't bother with the apex at turn 1. And so he's got to go again.
Yeah, a lot of people making front lockups into turn 1. As we see a replay of George Russell doing exactly the same thing. It's just towards the end of braking. They're really pushing the boundaries of where these cars can physically brake into turn 1. Going down the gears, they then lock up right towards the end of braking, get some understeer and miss the corner. And because you're looking for tenths or hundredths of a second, the lap you have to give it up after that.
7.5 minutes to go. Leclerc is going again. Made it through turn 1 on this occasion. Now coming through Curva Grande. And now into the De La Roggia chicane. 10th down on Bottas in the first sector, but it's half a second slower than his teammate Leclerc. He is Leclerc, slower than his teammate Sainz. But it's just about getting into into Q3. Goodness me, this has been a great sentence. Getting into Q3, and they will be going again, I imagine, on a new set of tyres at the end of this session. So Leclerc now coming through the middle sector, and compared to Bottas, who's on the bubble at the moment in 10th, he is half a second up. So this is going well enough for Leclerc. That looked like a big twitch coming through Ascari. Maybe it wasn't quite as dramatic within the car, but it felt big from outside the car.
Absolutely. The Ferrari still has this gentle porpoising, and it looked like it really took a big bounce in the middle of the right-hander as he crosses the line to go P2 behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. But that didn't look comfortable at all, did it? Just a little bit wider through the right-hander, and that bump really took him offline. It looked like he lost a bit of time.
Ferrari 1-2 in Monza at the moment. We're just going to have a look at it again. How big was this moment as he came into the... It's big enough at the Ascari chicane. Got on the power through the right-hander. That wasn't actually that big.
No, but notice how that small correction then makes the next corner tighter. When you've got combination corners like that, you need to be really squeaky clean. If you make a mistake in the first phase of the corner, it'll affect all the way through. The second phase of the corner, it'll affect the last bit. So you really need to make sure you nail every single aspect of Ascari.
Really interesting, just listening across to Nick De Vries' radio at Williams. Remember, he's sitting in for Alex Albon, who's got appendicitis. He got in the car this morning, just asking for a little bit of help with braking into turn 1. He's not the only one that needs it, and he's fresh into that car.
Absolutely. He is 12th quickest at the moment. The order is Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Russell, Alonso, Gasly, Ocon and Norris, the top 10. Eliminated at the moment would be Bottas, De Vries, Zhou, Ricciardo and Tsunoda. As I say, we'll see whether Tsunoda goes out or not, but he does have one of the many with penalties.
Last time he had a big penalty, they chose not to send him out for Q2. Everybody else went out in Q2, but he chose not to.
Bit of rummaging under the floor of one of the Red Bulls there.
It's Verstappen's car that they're just having a look at on the left-hand side. I wonder if just checking the settings at the bottom, because you know they've got the new technical directive, they're looking at bounce, the curbs relatively aggressive here, so they might just be checking the floor on that Red Bull.
4.5 minutes to go. Fernando Alonso getting ready to head out, currently 7th quickest. Not quite in the fight with the Mercedes on that run anyway, was a couple of tenths adrift. And they were both on new tyres, so looks as though Mercedes might have done enough to sort of lock out 5th and 6th, but that Alonso pace is decent in 7th place, Ocon in 9th, and the McLaren's down in 10th and 14th at the moment, so it could be another payday for Alpine in that fight over 4th potentially.
I mean, if you're Mercedes now, are you going again? I mean, it's right on the... I'd say Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. Yeah, they don't need to do anything. They can sit there and wait for Q3 and wait for the fight to be the fastest this afternoon. But everybody else, I still feel like Lewis and George, they're going to have to run again. It's if Ocon, Gasly, Alonso do a good run, I feel like the track is going to get slightly quicker as the temperatures subside slightly. I don't think that they're fully safe.
Russell's less than 4 tenths ahead of Bottas and De Vries, so I think you're right in that they've got to go again. Well, about 4 tenths to De Vries, less than 4 tenths to Bottas. 3 minutes on the clock. That may be the time that everybody decides to leave the pit lane.
Just looking at Yuki Tsunoda, if they choose not to run him again for AlphaTauri, then he would be the one that starts in P20.
But he's sitting at the wheel of his car with the tyre warmers coming off, so I imagine that means he's going to head out onto the circuit, Tsunoda.
So it's still all in the mix who starts last.
Exactly. Keep us abreast, Jenny. 2.5 minutes to go.
I heard a rumour about Ferrari tyre warmers the other week. I was in a shop. Apparently, Ferrari's tyre warmers are made in Dorset.
Really?
Just thought I'd let you know. Little shout out to Dorset companies.
I wonder how many tyre blanket suppliers there are in the world.
However many there are, there'll be less when the regulations change, because they won't be allowed tyre warmers anymore. So your Dorset company.
Oh yeah.
Bad time.
Yeah, that's why I gave them a shout out just now.
2 minutes and 7 seconds to go. Everybody now making their way out onto the circuit. At the head of the queue, I think, is De Vries in the Williams. Then he's followed by the 2 Alfa Romeos. It is Bottas ahead of Zhou. Then it's the Mercedes out of the pit lane of Hamilton ahead of Russell. And then there's some drivers heading out the pits now. Ocon at the back of this queue. He's only got a 20-second buffer here. And they're not sending Tsunoda out. So they fired the car up. He was sitting in the car. And then they've gone now.
Tsunoda starts last.
Cool. This is going to be a bit tight for Ocon. We'll see what happens as they come around the back stretch. But they had a minute 40 on the clock when they were at turn 1, and it's a minute 20 for a lap. They are kind of cracking on with these outlaps. Nick De Vries is going around with a fair chunk of pace as he comes into the Ascari chicane and then down towards the Parabolica. Less than a minute to go. As I say, they're all doing quite sensible speeds. The final sector tends to be 26 seconds, and the Alpines are coming through it now with 46 seconds, so they've kind of done a full flat-out outlap, so it just depends on how much jiggery-pokery there is at the final corner, but I imagine now they'll all be safely through. So here we go. At the moment, eliminated. Bottas, De Vries, Zhou, Ricciardo. Tsunoda will be out, but it's will those 4 be out and not into Q3. Meanwhile, Nick De Vries is coming through the Rettifilo chicane and then heading down towards Curva Grande. and Della Roggia. The Alpines are going to be fine across the line. Ocon will make it through, albeit with about 10 seconds to go, but that's 10 seconds enough. Oh, big lock-up for De Vries, locked the rears. He was 2 tenths up on Norris. He looked like he maybe had a shot at going into Q3, but a huge lock-up on the rears, managed to save it, but he won't be going through, Nick De Vries. So Bottas now, did he have to back off in that first sector because De Vries went off in front of him? Don't think so, because he wouldn't have had a yellow flag by that point, and he's still pushing Valtteri Bottas. The top 4 have remained in the pit lane. Joe is not flying after the middle sector. Bottas is just over a tenth up on Norris after sector 2. Norris is improving. Ricciardo is also improving. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes through, because De Vries will now be out. Joe isn't rapid as he comes down towards the final couple of corners. Valtteri Bottas is ahead of him on the road. Here comes the Alfa Romeo through the final corner, out across the line. And it is 11th for Bottas, 13th for Joe, so it's just Ricciardo. Well, Norris could improve here, so it's can Ricciardo get out of this bottom 5? Pierre Gasly comes through and remains in 8th position. Norris jumps up into 7th. Ricciardo goes up into 8th, so Ocon is pushed out, but Ocon's improving. It could be Ocon or Gasly here to be eliminated, and it's Ocon eliminated. Ocon, Bottas, De Vries, Joe and Tsunoda knocked out of qualifying. Gasly makes it through in the AlphaTauri, and that is going to be surprising and frustrating, I think, for the Alpine team.
Very surprised that both McLarens are ahead of both Alpines. I thought at the beginning of the weekend that it would be the other way around. McLaren seemed to have turned it around nicely. Good to see Daniel Ricciardo closer to his teammate Lando Norris, and difficult afternoon's work for Esteban Ocon.
Nick De Vries got on the brakes, and as I say, just locked the rears.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I locked up the rears into turn 4.
Still 13th on the grid, Nick De Vries, because Joe didn't manage to improve.
Don't even start with where he'll be on the grid. I'll come to that.
Hamilton got in the gravel on the exit of Della Roggia. So let me rephrase that. Still good qualifying for De Vries, because he still out-qualified Zhou Guanyu. Norris.
AlphaTauri released it to me.
Okay, yeah, we saw that.
Got released into a little bit by Pierre Gasly. Nothing too dramatic, honestly, in the pit lane at that point, but there we go. Returning to the pit lane now. The top 10 that will go through to the pole position shootout are Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Russell, Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso and Gasly. And actually Ocon ruining the Noah's Ark vibe there, because it would have been 5 teams through if Ocon had managed to pit Gasly, but didn't in the end by 0.07 of a second. So a frustrating one that for Esteban Ocon.
Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll have both done it again, using the tactics of Spa to qualify badly but end up with a much better position on the grid.
Yeah.
Can't tell you exactly where they'll be on the grid, but somewhere around like 12th.
Well, the qualifying back, like they still would have rather qualified better, because then they'd be further up, wouldn't they?
I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just, something.
It was one of those weird ones. Yeah, because Vettel was so annoyed, wasn't he, in Spa in particular? Well, and we heard him giving a bit of a scream earlier on today.
P17 in Spa, and I think he started 11th in the end. I don't think he'll go up that high because of the plus 5s in there, but yeah, De Vries. De Vries, by the way, so close, I think. If he hadn't have had that wobble, do you think he'd have got through into Q3?
I can't see that.
No?
He could have maybe pipped to Bottas, but I don't think he's getting involved with the Alpines and the AlphaTauris particularly. But this is why it's frustrating for Alex Albon, wherever he's watching from at the moment, because you'd have to say, considering the advantage Albon has had over Latifi all season, he might have been able to squeeze into Q3 here, Albon.
Oh, I think absolutely. He's Alexander Albon has had, what do you reckon, 0.4, half a second at times over Latifi. Now, if he's having a good day, Alexander Albon on a good day is half a second up the road. I'm saying that he's mixing it definitely with Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sound you can hear is Alain Prost, 4-time world champion, speaking to the hospitality gang at Formula One. Probably talking about driving for Ferrari. I don't think he ever won for Ferrari at Monza, Alain Prost. There was the win in 88 for Berger and Alboreto. Was that the 1-2 in 88? Anyway, Sebastian Vettel out of the running, and it will now be the battle for pole position.
Won in 1985 by 51
Oh, did he?
seconds. 51 seconds.
And who was he with? Was that Renault in 85? Must have been. Sorry. I don't mean to keep throwing you under the bus like that.
It's fine. I'll check.
Battle for pole then. I don't know. Who's on paper favourite?
On paper favourite is Max Verstappen. However, Ferrari this afternoon have just found a little bit from FP3, and it is quite exciting to see Sainz and Leclerc really taking it to Max Verstappen, really saying, we're here as well. We're not going to let you get this pole position easily. We're going to fight you all the way. And Max Verstappen, I think, has got the edge in Sector 3, but certainly in Sector 1 and Sector 2, I'd say Ferrari looked pretty strong.
He'd gone to McLaren by then, hadn't he?
He had. But
Yeah, I've just realised that.
He won it for Renault in 1981. He won it for McLaren in 85 and also in 89 for McLaren.
There we go. So, final part of qualifying getting underway in a little under 90 seconds time. And the battle for pole position in inverted commas, because Sainz has penalties, Verstappen has penalties, Perez has penalties, Hamilton has penalties. So it's kind of who qualifies higher, Leclerc or Russell, will take pole, broadly speaking. And that would probably be Leclerc. So I think Ferrari are in for a entertaining, or the Tifosi are in for a happy day tomorrow when they turn up with the Ferraris, or one of the Ferraris anyway, on the front row. But it's still going to be a fascinating fight to see who can go quickest. They're really getting the Atmos going, aren't they, on the speakers at the circuit?
I think there is a great amount of expectation within the Tifosi, because they look at this car, and yes, there have been strategic blunders, there have been driver mistakes, team mistakes as they've gone through the season. Last time out, the 12-second pit stop for Carlos Sainz. But fundamentally, it's a good car. And they, it feels like a little while since they had a good car. Okay, Charles Leclerc took pole in 2019 of the win. But this is a real opportunity for them, and the crowd sense that.
It's a good opportunity for them, but I mean, when you look at it really realistically, Jenny, have they got the best car? No. And do they have currently the best driver currently in Formula One? No. The best driver and the best car are driving in a Red Bull right now. Right now. So there is that sense of hope, and there is a sense of expectation because it is Ferrari. But I still feel like the best team is a different team, and we are going to see a different car on pole. Well, not on pole position, but as the fastest car this weekend. Ferrari, though, always has this expectation. When you put on that race suit as a Ferrari driver, you are expected to win, as a minimum. And I think that's something that the fans hold to you as well. You are expected.
How do you shut out that noise then when you've been a Ferrari driver, not in Formula One, but in world endurance? How do you shut out that noise and just withstand the pressure that comes with being a Ferrari driver, especially at your home Grand Prix? Is it the same as any other race? Like, to me, it couldn't be.
I suppose, but I mean, at the same time, Carlos and Charles will know the enormity of coming to Monza, racing in front of the Tifosi. But can you imagine how many hundreds and thousands of people are outside of their hotel screaming and shouting Ferrari and Charles and Carlos? It'll be chaos for them all weekend here in Monza.
One of the interesting parts of it, I think, is that it's very much the pressure is. And Alonso and Vettel and a little bit Leclerc were discussing this on Thursday, and sort of the inference I got from it was that it was like the pressure is on the team though, because it's a Ferrari. It's a Ferrari. Everyone wants Ferrari to do well, and you know as a driver that if the Ferrari is slower than the Red Bull and you've done as quick as you can, that's still okay. You know what I mean? That's not actually reflecting necessarily on you. And Vettel said this, or it was Vettel or Alonso said, you know, even when you have the bad times, they still love you as a Ferrari driver. They dislike maybe Ferrari, but they still love you. And I think that's different to when it's a home race, let's say, and the expectation is perhaps on you as a person. So, you know, Zandvoort, and it's not a great example because Verstappen is seemingly immune to pressure, but the pressure is on him. They're all here to see him. And I think that's a bit of a difference to everyone being here to see the red cars. I don't know.
I mean, imagine a day when there is a seriously fast Ferrari car with a seriously fast Italian driver, a full-blooded Italian driver. Can you imagine at Monza if that person were to win?
Would be tremendous.
My goodness.
Right, cars out on circuit then, ready for the final runs in qualifying. Ferrari out on circuit, Red Bull out on circuit. All of the top 10 basically have gone out on track, and they're making their way down towards the Ascari chicane now. The two Ferraris looking like they're going to slipstream each other. It's a bit odd that Leclerc's ahead of Sainz, but also, to be honest, they're all in the point now where they're slipstreaming off the cars in front anyway, so who goes ahead of whom doesn't necessarily matter too much. Jenny?
Just having a look at tyres. Hamilton is on old tyre or used tyres at the moment, 6 laps used tyres. Norris 3 laps used, and Ricciardo also on 3 laps used, and Gasly 3 laps used. So Hamilton out of everybody on the sort of most used tyres. Everybody else is on a new set of soft tyres, bar Norris and Ricciardo.
Correct. So, final laps get underway. Well, penultimate laps, let's call them, get underway. They'll do a run on these soft tyres, and then they will come into the pits. New set of soft tyres, go again in the battle for pole position. Charles Leclerc exiting the Rettifilo. Verstappen just coming into the Rettifilo now. Through the right, through the left, and then down towards Curva Grande. First sector times coming in. Sainz is quicker than Leclerc by almost 1/10 of a second. They're both way clear of Sergio Perez in the first sector. Someone, I think it was Gasly, just kicked up a lot of gravel on the exit of Della Roggia, and Verstappen is also 4/10 back from Carlos Sainz in sector 1. But the middle sector, we'll see what the Red Bulls can do, because Ferrari have been very quick in sector 1 throughout the whole day so far, and weekend, quite frankly. Verstappen neat and tidy through the second Lesmo. Now into the Ascari chicane comes Charles Leclerc, but again Sainz is quicker in the middle sector. Verstappen though has found a good chunk of time in the middle sector. Norris comes across the line on his used tyres to do a 22.1, so that's the benchmark. But Sainz and Leclerc and Perez are going quicker. Is Verstappen losing a little bit of time here? Through the final corner comes the Ferrari. Straight back into the pits is going the Alpine of Fernando Alonso. Leclerc goes quickest, but Sainz goes quicker. A 1 minute 20.584 for Carlos Sainz, and Verstappen only goes third. Ferrari 1-2. Verstappen third, Perez fourth. Hamilton across the line. He can only go 7th because Russell's gone up into 5th. Norris in 6th, Hamilton 7th. Ricciardo 8th, Gasly 9th, Alonso straight back into the pits, but Sainz and Leclerc are ahead of Verstappen, and Sainz is in mega form. He's been really impressive the last few races, Carlos Sainz.
He has, and it's a shame that he's got a penalty coming up for this weekend, because I really think that he's been driving superbly well. Does he have a penalty?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, you looked at me a little bit
strange.
Sorry,
no, I just couldn't work out why they were towing in that order. Why was Leclerc, who hasn't got a grid penalty, towing round Sainz?
Well, because they're all behind everyone at this point.
Yeah, but you
anyway.
still, I mean, if you look at the way they're going out, they're still trying to go out towing their own and being in control of their own partnership.
To me,
I think that this will now swap for the next run. The next run is going to be the one, everybody, that really tells us who's going to be on the front row of the grid. This was an important run, and this puts a little bit of doubt in Max Verstappen's head, maybe, that Ferrari are really there this weekend, but they're now going to everybody will put on a brand new set of soft tyres, and we will go out and see who wants to be on pole position for the Italian Grand Prix.
My hypothesis here would be that here's Russell's radio.
Tyres again are just nowhere, sliding everywhere.
Tyres are nowhere, sliding everywhere, and that was a concern coming into this weekend, that Mercedes might struggle to turn their tyres on a circuit like this. But yes, my suggestion would be Leclerc is sort of going to get pole. Whereas, so whatever happens, whoever qualifies where, so is it more important you get Sainz ahead of the Red Bulls so that when the penalties are applied, he starts ahead?
No, because Sainz will start from the back of the grid regardless, whereas Verstappen and Perez, Verstappen has a 5-place grid penalty and Perez a 10-place grid penalty, so I just don't quite understand why they're doing that. Unless Leclerc asked for it, but why would you ask to tow Sainz?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels a bit much of a muchness because of just the nature of the grid penalties and everything.
Yeah. Alonso aborted his lap. I've asked the team what's going on. They just went, yep, he aborted his lap. So I can't give you any more info than that, sorry.
Made a mistake at Ascari, Fernando Alonso, I would suggest, because he was green until then, and then suddenly at the start of the third sector he backed off. So that may have been what happened for Fernando Alonso. 3 minutes and 26 seconds on the clock. Everybody back in the pits, as Sam says, a new set of tyres going on, and now out of the pits goes Fernando Alonso on his new set, making his way towards the end of the pit lane now, followed by Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, and then Max Verstappen, because Red Bull aren't slipstreaming at all, are they? Because Perez has just left the pits. Verstappen is still in the pits, and Verstappen leaves the pits now, and Sainz is already out there. Leclerc has just left the pit lane too. So at the back of the line of the front runners is Max Verstappen with 2 minutes and 37 seconds left on the clock. Going very slowly down the pit lane, Verstappen.
Charles Leclerc was trying to get a tow from Sergio Perez, and he was complaining that the gap was not right, not to his liking, and they were saying, well, it was the same that everybody else had. So a little interesting dialogue there.
Yeah. So, and now they've got a McLaren in between them on this occasion. So Sainz is out first, then it's the McLaren of Norris, and then it is Leclerc, and then it is Ricciardo. But Carlos Sainz coming into the final corner. Interested to see what Alonso gets up to here, because he's always a man with a bit of jiggery-pokery in his armoury.
Yeah, he's let Perez go through. So now he's not leading the field. So it's Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Verstappen, Hamilton leading round, Russell, who's the last car on track. So
Perez comes out of the Parabolica now to start his flying lap. Fourth at the moment. Verstappen was on pole position here last year, Hamilton the year before, Leclerc the year before that, Raikkonen the year before that. So we haven't had a repeat pole sitter in the last 4 seasons of the Italian Grand Prix. I imagine, well, we may not get one here if Carlos Sainz can be quick, stick it on pole, even though he has his penalty for tomorrow. But Charles Leclerc is surely the man who's going to be starting at the front of the grid. Here he comes out of the final corner now to start his flying lap across the line. DRS pings open as he heads down towards turn 1 at the Rettifilo. Perez halfway around the lap. Verstappen just starting his flying lap now.
George Russell on a used set of tyres, just to note, everybody else on new.
So Russell starts his lap then on a used set. It's an interesting decision from Mercedes, considering that they don't have a back of the grid penalty, do they? But maybe they're just confident that they can save a set and he'll still qualify second, whatever happens. 25 seconds on the clock. Leclerc coming through the second Lesmo. He and Sainz are going rapid down now towards the Ascari chicane. Sainz maybe losing a bit of time at the second Lesmo corner there, and Leclerc is going quickly. Fastest middle sector of anybody. Through the sweep as they come, and down towards the final corner. Verstappen is up on Sainz's time, but Sainz is improving. Oh, gets right up to the white line on the exit, Carlos Sainz. He does manage to improve his time. A 1:20.4. Next through is Lando Norris. He remains in 6th, but Leclerc gets Sainz. Leclerc on provisional pole by over a quarter of a second. Max Verstappen out across the line in the Red Bull. The championship leader splits the Ferraris, but it's Leclerc quickest, and it'll be Leclerc on pole for the Italian Grand Prix. 1 in 2019, and we'll start on pole tomorrow. On merit as well. 3rd for Sainz, 4th for Perez, 5th for Hamilton ahead of George Russell, 7th for Lando Norris, out qualifying Daniel Ricciardo by about 0.3 of a second in the end. Pierre Gasly 9th. Fernando Alonso, I think, got his lap time deleted, so no lap time for Alonso in that session, and he will start 10th. But Ferrari have beaten Red Bull at a circuit that, coming into this weekend on Thursday, Charles Leclerc said, we're hoping for a good surprise. Here's his radio.
So P1,
Come on! Yes! Ah, che bello. Adesso ragazzi, domani. Dai. Grandi, grazie.
I don't know much Italian. Was he saying tomorrow or something there at the end? Domani? I don't know what that means. That's sort of my guess. Anyway, Leclerc on pole position, and merit as well, quicker than Verstappen, and that's what I was going to say. Leclerc said on Thursday, we're hoping for a good surprise because we're not expecting to be good here, but hopefully we might not be as bad as we think. Then suddenly they're on pole.
I mean, we all thought that they'd be good, didn't we? But we, to be honest, I didn't expect him to beat Max Verstappen. And you could see...
Yeah, I think that's not a bad lap. Well, we will be all right tomorrow.
That was a very decent last lap, and that's okay for tomorrow. Well done.
We'll be all right tomorrow, Verstappen said, and that is Italian for tomorrow, what Leclerc was saying, Domani.
As I was saying, you could see how much it meant to the Ferrari mechanics in the garage to actually get pole position on merit. It wasn't that it was given to him because of a penalty. He got that pole position by driving the best lap out there.
So, Leclerc on pole position, that's a fact, right, Jenny? We don't need to do any other maths.
Thank goodness. I am...
Are you getting there?
I can tell you who the last 15, the last 6 are, and then it's not quite as clear as I was hoping it would be.
It'll be Russell front row? I guess thing is, so many of these things depend when the penalties get applied and in which order, don't they?
Well, it's all knocked on from qualifying, so yes, it will be Leclerc, then Russell, then Norris, and Ricciardo will be a top 4.
Okay. It's just a nightmare, isn't it? But Leclerc will be on pole position. That's the thing that we absolutely know. Leclerc, Verstappen and Sainz, the top 3. You can hear... You don't need to tell me... You don't need me to tell you what all those cheers are about. And it is another pole position at Monza for Charles Leclerc. Verstappen, in theory, potentially will be starting 7th on the grid, but depends what order the penalties get applied in. But you can hear the cheers from the crowd for Charles Leclerc, and we're going to hear from the top 3 now, and they are going to be talking. I love these. It's Davide Valsecchi who's going to be talking to the drivers, the former GP2 champion, and he is down on the grid speaking to those top 3, and disappointment a little bit on the face of Verstappen, but he's feeling confident about tomorrow, as well he would, considering how he was in Spa and then ended up winning. But now let's hear from Charles Leclerc pole sitter for the Italian Grand Prix. Talking to Davide Valsecchi.
What a pole position, man. Talk it through your lap, because it was amazing to watch and everyone here has enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'll start in English, I'll finish in Italian as always. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it wasn't an easy qualifying session. I knew that there was quite a bit of potential in the car, but didn't put everything together. I knew that in this last lap in Q3, I had to put everything together. And I managed to do it. So very happy with the lap, very happy with the performance. It's been a great weekend until now. The feeling with the car is amazing. And I really hope that we can do just like in 2019 tomorrow.
You know, surprise everyone in your middle sector. Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2 was incredible quick. Why? Did you feel something special in there? Because it was much faster than the lap before.
I just took much more risks. It was the last lap. I knew I had to find quite a lot of performance there, and I just went for it, and it worked out.
Mi sa che tutti qua ti ringraziano, perché oggi sei stato spettacolare e ci hai fatto divertire molto. Bravo Charles.
Grazie mille del sostegno. Qua a Monza è sempre incredibile, grazie a voi. E domani proverò a dare tutto come sempre per provare a portare la vittoria a casa, ve lo meritate. E sì, speriamo, però c'è ancora tanta strada e spingiamo fino alla fine. Grazie per tutto.
Max, second position just at the end. You were suffering a bit on the maximum speed, the first and third sector. How was your lap in general?
Yeah, it was close, but yeah, of course we chose to go for a little bit more downforce around here. And I think over one lap it's maybe not the best, but I think for tomorrow it can be quite strong. And also knowing that we have to start a bit back, you know. But I think all in all it was still a good lap. I enjoyed it the whole weekend so far. And I think it will be an interesting battle tomorrow.
Yeah, 5 position of penalty will be not so easy. The approach of the first corner usually there is tricky. How is going to be for your mindset there?
Yeah, just trying to stay out of trouble, of course, in the beginning, and then just work my way forward.
Well done, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Carlos. You were on pole on the first set of tires. That's amazing. How was your lap? How was your session? Fantastic the first one, maybe not perfect the second stint.
Yeah, no, it was honestly a very good quali session. I was feeling very well, and I was pushing flat out through Q1, Q2, and Q3. The only issue is that in Q3 I didn't have a tow, and yeah, this probably cost me those 2-3 tenths, to battle for pole position. But I'm starting last anyway tomorrow, so it's not like it changes my life. But yeah, very good lap. I had to take a lot of risks to compensate for the lack of tow. I was quicker in every corner, but slower in every straight. So in the end, I couldn't improve much.
And tell me please about tomorrow. Will be not an easy one, but maybe you can have also an extra support, an extra feeling from there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It hurts to be starting at the back tomorrow, especially with how competitive the car is this weekend, how good I'm feeling on the car, especially after this quali, and to know that I've been starting at the back. I mean, I will do my best, and I try to put on a good show and making it back through the field because the pace is there. But I wish I could be there at the front with Charles in order to try and do a 1-2 tomorrow for the Tifosi.
Thank you so much. Very well done.
Grazie a tutti.
So it is the pole position for tomorrow's Grand Prix for Charles Leclerc. That's all I know, Jenny.
I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah.
Please forgive me if this isn't actually how the grid lines up tomorrow, but I think it will be Leclerc with Russell alongside him and Norris behind. That much is for sure. Then I think it will be Verstappen, Ricciardo, Gasly, Alonso. De Vries starting his first ever Grand Prix in 8th place, filling in for Alex Albon, with Zhou behind him and Perez making up the top 10. Now, Perez is the outlier because he is plus 10 in this, and I might not have got that perfectly right. Then it'll be Latifi, Ocon, Vettel, Stroll, Bottas, Magnussen, Schumacher, Sainz, Hamilton and Tsunoda. So that might be the grid for tomorrow. We will wait to find out, and I'm sure you can see it on the BBC Sport website as and when we know exactly what it is. So it's all set up tomorrow The man in the Ferrari outfit, yellow this time to celebrate their 75th anniversary, will start in pole position. Can he hang on though? Max Verstappen, a 109-point lead in the championship, will be looking to win from 4th on the grid. And Mercedes looking for their first win potentially. Russell starting on the front row. Make sure you join us tomorrow. The race gets underway at 2 o'clock. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.